guest is here to talk about healing childhood wounds and how past traumas can actually affect your health as an adult. Dr. Erica Steele from Holistic Family Practice in Virginia Beach is here to explain. Now, doctor, I find this very fascinating. First of all, thank you for being here. But how can a person that has experienced a trauma cope with the triggers that come up in different facets of life, interpersonal relationships?
Yeah, so there's a lot to it. So first thing I want to do is define trauma.
Yes.
Because a lot of people don't understand what trauma is. They go, oh, my childhood was fine. Trauma can be any kind of experience, right? So, for instance, and it's deeply personal for me as well. I'm a child of 2 Marines. You know, my home was a war zone growing up, unfortunately, just because of their training and background. So, yelling, violence, those are obviously, we know that those are traumas, but it can be subtle traumas as well. Like there's the financial stress in the home, and children can feel that. So, all kinds of different events can be classified as trauma.
Okay, so what are some signs and symptoms? You call it ACEs, and what is ACEs?
Yes, so adverse childhood experiences were actually clinically studied several years ago, and they actually created a scoring of ACEs, right?
Okay.
So, you know, previously there was no kind of, you know, graphic in terms of that, but so social, environmental risk factors, like I just mentioned, create those adverse experiences or effects of trauma. What it actually does is it affects the neural development and creates mental illness. So it affects the brain in a negative way, which then in turn creates social, emotional, cognitive impairment as well. So that's why people that have these adverse childhood experiences have such a difficult time socially, emotionally, with relationships, things like that. And then naturally they start adopting these risk factors. So drug use, alcohol addictions, things like that. Even addictions to food and all kinds of other things, work, sex, those sorts of things.
It would almost seem like fixing this would mean turning back time, but you don't have to do that. There are some things that you can do to cope and develop if you have had childhood trauma.
Yeah, it's really about getting complete with the past. You can't go back and change the past, but you can get complete with the emotional, mental effects that those events have particularly had. I mean, myself, I'm a successful doctor, I'm in practice. You would never know unless I shared with you the experiences that I lived through.
Right.
So you can turn the darkness into light, as they say.
How does something like, say, yoga help give you a new approach and a new outlook, and a new step forward?
So not just any yoga. I mean, yoga's great, but Kundalini yoga is like my jam.
What is that?
So Kundalini, it's a spiritual-based yoga. So spiritually, mentally, emotionally, I always like to say it's the yoga on steroids, because you're going in, you're cleaning out what's in the subconscious mind to help reframe those perceptions so that you see the world as a safe place, you see that each other is one, I'm connected to you, you're connected to me, we're connected to all the viewers. And so it helps us to create that unity and that awareness, which is just amazing, what we need right now.
Is there anything else besides yoga that people who might be suffering through trauma can do?
There's neurofeedback, there's EFT, emotional freedom technique, cognitive behavioral therapies, there's biofeedback, there's a lot of various modalities that are naturally driven, of course, that can really help.
Okay. All right. Well, I found this very fascinating, and I'm glad you were here to share that, of course, there are so many people going through trauma and dealing with it, and that there are things that you can do. So where can we find your practice?
So my practice is on Laskin Road, 1213 Laskin Road. We also have some Kundalini yoga classes coming up.
Oh, great.
I just went through my KRI certification for that. So Sundays at 10 to noon, Mondays from 6 to 8, and all this month we're all dealing with trauma, and we're just going to clear out our subconscious mind and get ourselves free and happy and joyful again.
Gosh, that sounds refreshing, actually. All right, well, Dr. Steele, thank you so much for being here.